are friends in this, and you don't need to look that far to see. In an instant, it's all rushing by.
Hello everyone, this is Pendy.
And this is Paul, also known as EastX Twitch.
In honor of our upcoming spooky season, I've got a bone to pick with you.
With me, what could I, the famously upstanding citizen and true Dragon Quest fan, have ever done to you?
See? That right there. True Dragon Quest fan, my butt. In our cosplay episode we recently did, you mentioned you haven't finished Dragon Quest XI or even played Dragon Quest VIII.
Whoa there. I played a lot of other Dragon Quest games. Why are you trying to gatekeep me, you Mendini fetishist?
And what kind of name is EastX Twitch anyways? Are you a twitchy X-man that comes from the East or something? Totally ridiculous.
Maybe I am, but most people are too polite to bring it up. Anyway, you better be careful. You don't want to incur my wrath.
Wrath? What wrath? You can't even co-host properly. You know, you should really just...
That's enough of that. You didn't even know I had a third eye that can turn people into eye jewels, now did you? You won't be able to speak either. You can only sit there and watch, trapped, as I have now become the one true host. At least until I'm done welcoming everyone to Alltrades DQ Media Abbey, a Slime Time podcast spinoff where we review various Dragon Quest media, including manga and anime. And I suppose I'll let you out now, trashy McTalker.
Oh, okay. We are currently reviewing the 2020 Dragon Quest The Adventure of Dai anime and the Dragon Quest X tie-in manga, Rooming with a Gamer Gal. We'll start with Dai first, so let's strash it up.
And we begin with episode 93, The Eye Jewel. Last time, King Vern had whooped Dai, and things were looking bad for Leona. In this episode, we return to King Vern's offer to have Leona serve by his side. She refuses, angering Vern, who then turns her towards Dai and unleashes a torrent of boom spells towards the fallen hero. Dai dodges, but is still hit by some of them. Poor dude. Vern tries to finish Dai off with a Kaiser Phoenix spell, but is surprised when it misses the mark. As it turns out, Leona stabbed Vern with her Papnika knife, setting the Kaiser Phoenix off course. But this further angers Vern, who shoots a beam of energy from his third eye. The beam transforms Leona into an eye jewel, trapped and unable to move or speak. Dai seems to have thought of a strategy to counter Vern, but before he can work it out, Vern charges with a calamitous wall strike that Dai defends with his sword. As they battle, Dai gets knocked down by a palm strike. Ouch. Vern goes in for the kill with another calamitous wall strike, but he gets whooshed away by Pop, who has arrived with the other remaining heroes. Before they can attack, Vern uses his third eye to turn the weaker heroes into eye jewels. No. The only ones left standing are Larhart, Kim, Yvonne, Pop, and of course Dai. Pop begins to heal Dai as the other three charge in. They all get taken down by Vern's demonic guard of heaven and earth, his defensive move that attacks in 3 different ways. Yvonne is too weak to continue, so he gets turned into an eye jewel as the heroes lament their loss.
I thought it was fun to see all the heroes assembled, but of course that doesn't last very long. It made for a nice shot of them all together at least. I really loved Leona's contribution to this episode before she gets turned into an eye jewel. She shows that Dark King Vern is vulnerable and gets under his skin with her barbs. I've always enjoyed the dialogue and strength of her character. It was sad to see Yvonne taken out, but this is a true passing of the torch episode as he points out that Pop's mind is even stronger than his now. They show that he has already worked something out about the demonic guard of heaven and earth after he witnessed it. I like how he got complimented for his strategic moves by the other party members too.
Man, poor Yvonne, as you mentioned. These next few episodes are frustrating for me. We have Dai acting uncharacteristically weak and just getting whooped when he would have been fine in the past. Think of all the situations where Dai and everyone else would have died if the hero had just laid there and failed to power up. Like, I don't like what they're doing with him here. Leona and the others getting trapped in the crystals is not very fun either, though at least they haven't been killed. Leona probably would have been destroyed for talking back and stabbing Vern if she didn't have plot armor. But I want her alive, so I'm not complaining. Like you said, it's cool when the heroes show up to help, but then the 3 of them automatically get whooped by running in like idiots. Just like, Leroy Jenkins, boom. As I said not long ago, the series writer doesn't seem to know how to put the heroes at a disadvantage without just having them act foolish. The final battle is the time when they should really be strategic, not impulsive and dumb, so that's a shame.
Next is episode 94, On This Bond. We continue the battle with Dark King Vern in this episode. Having taken out Yvonne, Vern now charges and dispatches all of our heroes. As they try to recover, he fires a calamitous wall towards them. Heem and Larhart advance, and Heem is able to rip open the calamitous wall. The 2 heroes attack again, but Vern then takes them down with his demonic guard of heaven and earth. Immediately after that, Pop manages to fire a Madroa spell, which Vern barely deflects away. Vern laughs at the attempt, but Pop explains that instead of trying to damage Vern, he was merely gauging his reaction time so Pop and Dai could defeat him. Pop readies 2 spells, a kaboom on one hand, and powers up the staff he wields in the other hand with his magical power. Despite Vern's warning that he can easily handle both, Pop charges in. As Vern predicted, he absorbs the kaboom, breaks Pop's staff, and then blasts Pop with a Kaiser Phoenix. What Vern didn't account for is that Pop was secretly wearing the Mirror of Shahal that reflects spells under his tunic. He got it from Sigma, the Fallen Knight piece of Hadlar's Royal Guard. Thanks to the shield, the magical energy that was thrown at Pop is now reflected back at King Vern. The episode ends with Vern burning in his own magical energy.
That's what you get, Vern.
Yeah.
Vern threatens to destroy the eye jewels in this episode, I noticed, which is a really dirty threat, because they're totally helpless. Thankfully, Heem and poor blinded Larhart manage to stave off the attack, even though it gets them even more whooped. When Chu, who's trapped in an eye crystal, roots for Heem-chan, that's a brief but welcome moment of levity during an otherwise serious episode. It's too bad that Chu, Brokina, and Crocodile don't get a chance to help out during the final battle. I like that Pop had a trick up his sleeve for attacking Vern. He and Vern were doing the thing where they talk out what they're going to do for no logical reason, but at least there was a twist this time thanks to Pop's secret item. Vern deserves to get knocked down a peg, but he'll be back in a position of dominance in the next episode, so enjoy it while it lasts. And I have a note about Vern's calamitous wall attack. In the Japanese version, he says calamity wall, but the subtitle and dub change it to calamitous wall. It doesn't make much sense to change it from calamity to calamitous in the subtitles. Calamity still works. Think of the X-Men's Danger Room. You could call it the Dangerous Room. It wouldn't be wrong, but the Danger Room is just fine. In Dai, we get a lot of spells and attacks that are pronounced in English by the Japanese actors, but translated differently in the subtitles and dub in order to match the official video game translations. For instance, the characters say lightning when they cast the lightning spell, and the translation team changes it to Zapple. Still, in this case, I would have argued for keeping the move as Calamity Wall in order to avoid the unnecessary disconnect between what is said and what the subtitles say. And yeah, I'm an English teacher, so, I get hung up on translation and word things like that.
No, that's great. Yeah, I understand that. Like sometimes they go with the official translation of what they use in the games, like you said, but Calamitous Wall is not one of those spells that is actually in the series, so it is weird that they changed it like that. Though,
exactly.
Bringing up your point of the dangerous room, that would be funny in X-Men. We have to go to the dangerous room. But yeah, anyways, this was a good episode about Pop, how he's progressed, and the bond that he created with Dai along the way. I also didn't see the mirror coming into play, so that was a fun surprise. Not that I thought Pop was going to be defeated, I just didn't realize how he would succeed the first time I watched this play out. The episode name and theme also shows one of the reasons why they named the mobile game Our Heroes' Bonds. The show constantly points out that Dai is stronger through the bonds he forges with others, especially Pop. Also in the episode, Heem ripping open that calamitous wall was also such a great moment. I really enjoyed him just tearing it apart. The one thing that felt off to me was Larhart being blinded from a previous attack. They didn't play up the moment when he got blinded, and to be honest, it didn't really play into the action or story at all beyond Heem just pointing him in the right direction for the final attack. I know the anime follows the manga pretty closely, but I'm wondering if this is one of those moments that got condensed a bit. Compared to the original anime, as an example, they definitely increased the pace a bit in the new show, though the original anime also did have a few scenes that weren't in the manga.
Yeah, that's a good point. They didn't properly depict Larhart getting blinded here, but I'm thinking it's probably self-censorship to downplay the violence of the show, because the show has done that on several occasions, where it was more violent in the manga and the original show, and they're just trying to get a lighter age rating here.
Yes, because it did get stricter in Japan for what you can air at certain times of the day, and this is a show that's more directed to like all ages or children, so they have had some moments that we've seen where the violence or the sexual stuff is played down a bit compared to the manga and the anime, as you pointed out, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and that's a downer whenever you watch a new version of a classic show. It's something that we've also seen in the new Urusei Yatsura. I'm sure it's in the new Ranma 1/2 show. Just all these remakes. Oh, and Dragon Ball Z Kai, of course. Just they all get lightened up a little bit for better or worse.
Yeah, if it's a show that's going for a more mature audience and they're going to air it later at night, then they don't do that. But yeah, if it's an all ages type show, then that's definitely happened in like the last decade or so.
And what a shame. Now then, we have episode 95, The Greatest Final Comeback. I hope you brought a change of pants, kids, because we now return to the fight with true King Vern as he has been engulfed in the magical attack that was reflected back at him by Pop. Vern withstands the attack, but then Dai performs an Avant Strash. Vern is confident he can withstand the Avant Strash, but Dai surprises him with his Strash Cross, cutting off Vern's arm. With Vern at a disadvantage, Dai then plunges his sword into Vern's chest, hangs on for dear life, and lets loose a series of Zapple spells. Dai damages himself with the spells as well, but it's all he can think of to do. too. After a while, Vern seems damaged but unfazed, and he reveals to Dai and Pop that he has implanted 5 pillars of Vern all around the world, these gigantic pillars that were dropped like bombs. What the humans had thought were indiscriminate attacks were all planned to build a hexagon of destruction to wipe out the surface world. Oh no. Vern then plunges the 6th pillar directly below them to where Queen Flora and the others had been observing, and the pillar presumably destroys them. Vern reveals that each pillar has a gigantic black core 10 times the size of the core that was implanted in Hadlar. Whether or not Vern survives, the cores are all programmed to explode in 10 minutes. In utter despair, Dai lets go of Vern and falls to the ground, thinking that all he has done to protect the world was in vain.
It's the final comeback. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. The greatest final comeback. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do.
Lordy.
I guess I should keep my day job, huh?
For now.
Is it all over for Dai and company? For those that were below them? For the whole surface world? It looks pretty grim in this episode. Not even a glimmer of hope if you don't watch the next episode preview, at least. Despite the dour ending, there are a lot of good moments in this episode as the tables are initially turned against true Dark King Vern. Hey, Vern! We get a nice moment of showing Sigma gifting the mirror of Shahal in a flashback, and I also thought when they showed Sigma's reflection in one of the pieces of the mirror as they come out of the flashback was really nice. The shot of the pillar of Vern plunging down was really impressive too. It really gave you the scope of just how massive that thing is. It's fun to see Dai and Pop work in concert with each other to damage Vern so much. A nice use of the Strash Cross as well. Seeing Vern damaged with the Strash Cross in those series of Zapples was very satisfying before he played his final trump card.
Indeed. The story of Sigma giving the shield to Pop as he was dying is touching. That's another one of Hadlar's royal guards who ends up redeeming himself. I'm glad they mostly weren't all bad. I was just talking about how the show translates the Zapple spell, and now Dai casts that spell over and over into Vern. Really good voice acting in the Japanese version. Shame the spell doesn't seem to do that much damage to Vern. Dai attacking over and over while Vern just takes it really sells the hopelessness that this episode is going for, because he's not accomplishing as much as we would hope. We're also supposed to feel hopeless when the pillar gets dropped straight below the palace and onto the human army and Yvonne's girlfriend, Queen Flora. That's dark for sure, but we don't see anyone get hurt, so either they somehow escaped harm, or the show is just being super cowardly about depicting harm. Again, hard to say. The episode ends with Dai losing his spirit and giving up. Man, Dai is always doing this, such as when Leona had to convince him not to give up at the start of the Dark King Vern fight, the first one. I know things look bleak right now, but the protagonist's constant wavering can be really frustrating, for me at least.
And I know I've said this before, but I don't have as much as a problem with it because he's only like 11 or 12 years old. And it's a bit much for someone of that age. And I know he's gone through so much already, but this is one of those times where I can understand where he's coming from, because it looks like there is just no hope whatsoever in this particular point.
That is true. If he had never done it before, I wouldn't even be annoyed by it, you know? But it's the fact that he does it like every 5 episodes that makes it get on my nerves.
No, I get it. So next we'll go into rooming with a gamer gal. First up is Server 17. I want to be stylish. In this chapter, we learn all about the style options in Dragon Quest X. The game lets you have your base equipment for the stats it will give you, while you can wear other equipment that will actually appear on your character. You can even change the colors of the equipment. Sasuke has been taking a long time to figure out how to dress up Pao, and he invites Miyako over to see it once he is done. While they discuss their character style choices, they both realize that Miyako likes to be very stylish in real life, but in the game, she is pretty happy with just one look. However, while Sasuke doesn't pay much attention to his style in real life, in the game, he is constantly dressing up Pao in many different outfits and experimenting with the colors he likes. Sasuke decides that maybe he should pay attention to his style more in real life, and Miyako teases him about it, suggesting that he might have a crush on a girl at work. He is angered by this and storms off to his room, thankful that Miyako considers him a friend, but realizing that he might be wishing for more than that.
This chapter is very didactic, spending most of the pages teaching readers about the dress-up options in Dragon Quest X. That might be a little boring if you're not interested in playing the game, but the cute artwork definitely helps. The whole point of the manga is to spread the word about Dragon Quest X while also telling a slow burn romance story, and this chapter is a fine example of how to do that. At the end, we still get 6 or so pages that focus on Satsuki and Miyako and advance their narrative. Satsuki is starting to feel like he should try to match Miyako's appearance a little better. That makes a lot of sense to me. He never thought he'd have a chance with a girl, let alone a beautiful one, so now he's looking at what he can do to be a good match for her. A lot of nerdy guys have probably gone through the same thing as they matured in life or met someone special. On the final page, Satsuki wonders why his heart aches when he thinks of being friends with Miyako. That's some good progress for him, and I hope he continues to confront his feelings like that in the coming chapters.
Yeah, for me, this is a nice server that shows off what you can do with Dragon Quest X's equipment options, while also showing us that Satsuki now is definitely starting to have feelings for Miyako. Looking at the title card for the server, there are a ton of equipment options in the game, more so than any other I've seen in a Dragon Quest game. You've got the head, torso, legs, an accessory slot, and even arms and feet options. The ability to wear something for attack or protection while also wearing something else to change your character's appearance is really great. In Dragon Quest IX, every piece of equipment changed your appearance, but your look could get pretty wacky because of it. Dragon Quest XI had some certain outfits that could change your appearance, but it wasn't until Dragon Quest XI-S that they brought in the beauty feature to do what you can do in 10. Want Veronica to wear the catsuit the whole game while actually equipping other equipment? Do you hate the hero's hair like East X and our other Slime Time host Platty do and want to cover it up with a helmet? Well, you can in Dragon Quest XI-S. This also makes me excited for the upcoming 3 remake because it also has some increased style options in it. The example panel here in this manga that is drawn with all the different characters in different getups is fun. There's someone dressed up resembling Alina from Dragon Quest IV, and the little guy in the middle is just wild with his Dragon Ball Z-ish helmet with a dark slime bottom and flippers. In one of the other examples, there's someone labeled with a big hat that is clearly a sham Hat Witch hat, which would definitely be one of my priorities to get in the game if I played it. There's also someone shown dressed up in Monster Wrangler gear, a new class that I believe was first made for Dragon Quest X and will be newly added in the 3 remake. I also love the Tactics Ogre reference. Such a good game. It's fun to see that Miyako is a fan, but shame on Satsuki for never having played it. Such a good game. He needs to open up his RPG library and get that done. Do that one.
Agreed.
There's a remake now for it now, right?
I believe you're right.
Yeah, I need to pick that up. I noticed a little spelling error in the translation too. They referenced Artnia in the server, but called it Altnia. I can normally get how this happens, as there isn't really an L or R sound in Japanese. They basically kind of combine the two together in how they speak. But they had just done a whole chapter on Artnia previously, and the name is directly on the front of the building in English. I wonder if maybe multiple translators work on this series, because you would think you would remember that detail if it was the same person. Finally, I thought it was really funny that they both realized that Satsuki is basically a Garu in Dragon Quest X, despite his negative feelings about someone like that in the past. And big reveal at the end. Satsuki definitely has feelings for Miyako now. I'm interested to see where it leads.
How could he not have feelings for her? She is pretty awesome. In Server 18, Goro-san's Day Off, we begin the chapter with Satsuki going on a rant about sick people in public not wearing masks. This all ends with the reveal that Satsuki has caught a cold and has taken a sick day from work. Being sick and not being able to respond well, he logs into the game invisibly and on mute. He then realizes that Miyako has the day off as well, and she doesn't know that she isn't alone in the house like she expected. With her guard down, Satsuki hears her doing what he hasn't heard her do before, like singing, swearing during Dragon Quest X arena fights, and performing a certain bodily function. Before long, however, she comes over to water Satsuki's field in Dragon Quest X and discovers that he is logged in. She gets mad that he hadn't announced his presence in the house, but she softens once she realizes he's sick. She does make an ultimatum that when he gets better, he must do all the things that he heard her do, or else.
This is a very fun server about Satsuki's sick day and hearing another side of Miyako when she thinks she's all alone. I thought it was very endearing of her character. Seeing her singing and dancing around, as well as getting mad at Dragon Quest X when it doesn't go her way, was adorable. The infamous fart is also hilarious. The best part was Satsuki being discovered by Miyako in Dragon Quest X at Satsuki's garden. Before the consequences click, it is so funny that his first immediate thought is how glad he was that she has come to water his field. I absolutely love how that all went down, and her well-deserved rage at Satsuki. It was a great setup. It is nice how she softens upon learning that he really is sick, but with the very serious caveat that he will need to do all those things he heard Miyako do in front of her when she gets better. Satsuki's rant about people wearing masks while they are sick is also very interesting. Compared to America, especially pre-COVID when this chapter was published, it was very common for people in Japan to wear a mask when they were sick. Same for South Korea from my personal experience living there. So it makes sense that he would feel so strongly about the few people who don't mask up when they are sick. It goes along with how many Asian countries have a collectivist society where there is more of an emphasis on the society as a whole as opposed to the ways of individualism in many Western societies. It's why masking up during COVID was really no big deal there, while we struggled with it here in America. I'm also betting that him feeling bad about taking a sick day from work and feeling sorry for whoever has to cover for him is part of the strong Japanese Japanese work culture as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the collectivist society thing and how their culture is different. And that makes me think of an anime that I'm currently watching on Crunchyroll called Alya Sometimes Hides Her Feelings in Russian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's kind of a high school romantic comedy, I would say. It's all about these student council representatives and what they're doing at the school. And they're like mediating disputes between different clubs, and they're organizing festivals and things. And they're doing all these things that you could never trust American kids to do. Like you can't trust American kids to have full open access to the school building after hours and things like that. So it just reminds me of how different our cultures are in some ways, and their culture certainly has some advantages.
Oh yeah, and I can't remember the name of the show, but there's also a show streaming about showing Japanese kids, like little ones, like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, like just going out in public and doing whatever, something that you couldn't do in America just because of the lack of safety that we have and crime and all of that. But yeah, it's very interesting to see the difference in cultures when it comes to that sometimes.
Indeed. Now, getting back to the manga, how thin are Satsuki's walls anyway? He can hear every little sound Miyako makes, it seems, which does explain how they're able to have full conversations while playing the game in different rooms. They're basically doing voice chat, but without headsets.
Yes, and it actually does make sense because they establish early on that they are living in a traditional Japanese house. And I do know that traditional Japanese houses compared to houses, out west in places like that have very thin walls. So that does make sense.
Yeah, that's quite a big difference from us. I mean, like I can hear my neighbors make sounds in my apartment, but only if they're being loud, not just like every little thing they say.
And a lot of that is also related to the culture of privacy that people out west have, especially in America. Like we are very big about privacy in America, but in Japan and in South Korea, from what I've seen, like privacy is not as big a deal. How we would like keep a sickness hidden away from people for a long time, that's not a thing in Asian countries. How we have a medicine cabinet, they don't have medicine cabinets in bathrooms in Japan. They just keep them out in the kitchen or wherever. Like they don't keep them hidden. Like there's just so much less privacy as a culture in Asia compared to it out west.
Yeah, and that surely has its ups and downs too. I mean, the big one that that I'm sure we would all think of is like, well, what about when you're wanting to be romantic with somebody? Do you really want everyone else in the house being able to hear that so well?
Yeah, and I think that's probably a big reason why like countries like Japan have love hotels, not necessarily for like prostitution or something like that, so that people can go out and their girlfriend or whatever and have a romantic engagement and not have everyone in the house hear it.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So anyway, getting back to Satsuki, it's funny and goofy of him to worry so much about letting Miyako know that he's home, but at least he's trying to be considerate. He has good intentions. I like how Miyako initially wonders if Satsuki is logged in from the 3DS version of Dragon Quest X, as if he was playing it during his break at work. That's like a reasonable assumption you might make in that scenario. It makes me wonder how up to date the 3DS version is nowadays, or if it's been shut down in favor of the Switch version. You happen to know?
I don't off the top of my head. I'm not sure if it's still running on the 3DS. I'm guessing not, because the 3DS servers were shut down. So if there's no online servers, I'm probably sure that you can't play an online game, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. And the Switch has got to be fairly ubiquitous in Japan at this point.
Right, exactly.
And as we were talking about before we started the show, I have a Steam Deck, so I have a similar experience of being able to play the same game both at home or on the go. It's such a shame that we don't have an official English version of Dragon Quest X to enjoy on PC and Steam Deck, darn it.
Oh my God, yeah.
The mask stuff at the start of the issue is still quite relevant today. Wearing masks to prevent the spread of illness simply wasn't done in the US before COVID came along. Once the disease hit, some states changed their culture to adapt to the threat of COVID, and other states chose not to do so. That doesn't mean that everyone is the same in a state, of course. I wore a mask to work 2 days last week, even though it's not common in my state. Every single person here knows they have the option of trying not to spread disease, but most people in my area make the selfish choice instead. That's how I got sick in the first place, somebody not wearing a mask when they were sick. In short, I understand Satsuki's frustration. That's a frustration that we now have over here as well. Also, as a teacher, you have to make materials for your substitute when you're sick, and you have to take into account how you being out will affect your students' progress. So I have things even worse than Satsuki as far as worrying about calling in sick goes. And with that, we wrap up this episode of Alltrades DQ Media Abbey. If you want to prepare for our next episode, be sure to watch episodes 96 through 99 of Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai. We're getting very close to the final episode, which is 100. And you should read chapters 19 and 20 of Rooming with a Gamer Gal. You can watch the Dai episodes subtitled on Crunchyroll or dubbed on Hulu. And Rooming with a Gamer Gal is available through the Manga Up mobile app.
We're a non-profit podcast podcast. We won't fart away your hard-earned gold when we can offer you quality content for free. But if you do have some extra gold that's just completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, eye jewel, or treasure chest, and you would like to donate anything to a website that's supporting Dragon Quest fans for over 25 years, stop by the Dragon's Den by clicking the link in the show notes. There are several ways to support the Den, including the affiliate links that don't cost you anything extra when making other Dragon Quest purchases. Also, check out the new Tokyo Game Show trailers and get those pre-orders in for Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, everybody.
We even have a Slime Time t-shirt that was designed by our resident artist, Dwayne. See the link for it in the show notes.
As part of the Slime Time Extended Universe, or STU, you can direct comments or questions for the podcast on X and Instagram at DQ Slime Time.
And you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/EastXTwitch. Come watch me play a variety of games every Saturday, kids.
Join in tons of Dragon Quest discussion at the Dragon's Den forums and Discord, and the Dragon Questers and Slime Time Facebook groups.
We'd like to thank everyone that made this podcast possible, including Pendy, Woodis, the Dragon's Den, and the concept of time. So few of us have enough of it, so we must savor it when we can.
Please like, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast.
We'll catch you later, everybody. Don't hate, appreciate.
Time to zoom on out of here. Oh, whoops, excuse me, wrong spell.
Oh, goodness.
Tell me where you're going when you go off alone. Oh, oh, oh. Sometimes all a friend can do is wait and watch for you to come back home. Hey, tell me where you're going when you go off alone. Oh, this was a story based on honesty and courage from the start. We're together, I thought we could make it work. On the horizon, something shining, and everyone can see it, and I'm feeling confident.
This is slime time! General Flazzard here! Beware my five-finger flares!